Hello, welcome to my kitchen table. Actually, I say that. Welcome to my dining room table. Just looks a bit like a kitchen table, doesn't it? I'm Ben from Mastercraft and Miniatures, and I've got a couple of products that I wanted to sort of go through how they work and how they assemble and stuff. So I thought I'd give this a go. It's a bit janky. I'm just using my mobile phone on a wobbly tripod, which does that a little bit when I touch it. So, bear with me and all that. So the first one, this is a scenario objective widget or a layout widget for Bushido. It's one of the things that annoys me, and I understand why it is how it is, but the deployment of scenario objectives, the measurements done to the center of the objective. And that means, of course, that let's say you're putting it in the center of the board, and it's a small objective. You need to measure 12 inches to the center of that objective, but the objective's 30 mil. So, like like some Americans, for instance, might not even have millimeters on their tape measures and so on. So, subtracting 15 mil from 12 inches, it's just a little bit irritating, isn't it? So, this is designed to deal with that problem. And actually, this is the culmination of a whole bunch of different design revisions, which for something so simple in its purpose does seem a little bit excessive, but that's how I do things sometimes. Actually, I'm going to take this opportunity to go and get one of the original prototypes, because I've got one in the utility room. So I'm not even going to pause this. I'm just going to walk away and you can still get me. So, the first version, here we go. Now, this first version, again, is pretty simple, isn't it? I mean, this isn't even the first version because it's got instructions on it. So, the idea, and I can't fit everything onto this table, obviously, but the idea is you've got your board edge for a 30mm objective. Put that up against the board edge, and then you stick your objective there. You can see that this one does double duty. And if you want to do 50mm, then you get it the side up where you can read it says 50, board edge 50, and you get a 50mm scenario objective. And there it goes. It goes there for 8 inches, or it goes all the way out of shot for 12 inches. So this is fine, it's 2mm MDF, it's cheap to produce, pretty flimsy. I've given a few of these away to like a couple of tournaments and stuff like that, and that was kind of the idea, to produce like a tournament support pack for TOs. Still part of the plan, and this will probably be a part of it, because I can produce these very quickly and extremely cheaply. So I'll also be doing some zones out of 2mm MDF, but they will have a pattern on them. They won't just be a 2mm disc of MDF, because that would be dull. So put that one to one side. So thanks to Mutaz, by the way, the guy who produces the wonderful Bushido companion app, he helped me iterate on this a little bit. He pointed out some fairly obvious design flaws in a couple of the prototypes, where maybe I tried to be a bit too clever and actually ended up being a little bit stupid in my choices. So this, the original concept here, it's big. It won't fit into some carry cases, because obviously it's 12 inches long. It's also got this narrow piece here, which in 2mm MDF, didn't feel too great about that. So I decided I wanted to have them folding. Originally started with a screw and nut design up here, and I was going to be 3D printing them, but honestly 3D printing of an object like this just takes so long. And then I found this 3mm painted MDF, and I thought, I'll pick some of that up, and it just, I don't have to engrave it, I can just score it with the laser. And it comes, I'm trying to get this camera to focus, but it's not doing a very good job. It just comes up really nicely. So yeah, this it takes an 8mm magnet. Again, this isn't a final version, I don't think. Oh, it might be actually. Yeah, so the bottom magnet here is 8mm but 2mm thick, which means you have a little 1mm dip. And this one is 4mm thick, which means you have 1mm sticking out. So when they go together, you can't just pull them apart, you have to do that. That is a really nice little detail which I can take no credit for, because that's thanks to James, or Frank the Goldfish, when he appears on social media, which he doesn't all that often, but he's been doing that with the steppers that he designed for himself, and I will be doing that with the steppers that I've been designing as well. So thanks to James. So it works in the same way, you know. Still got this double duty middle bit, which is sort of by necessity, otherwise I'd have to put it around the other side and it wouldn't fold and would snap on something that's not folding. So there you go. I put these notches in so it locks together, which is just nice, isn't it, really? Because it's it's a ruler, isn't it? So I thought, well, okay, we'll put some notches in at inch increments where we can. So that's on both parts, but that's also, these are inch increments as well. So if you look at where the two lines meet in that sort of triangle shape, that's an inch. Very clever, Ben. Pat myself on the back. Also the gap here, that's an inch. So if you want to figure out a zone of control and you just happen to have this to hand, that'll do it. Obviously these are going to foul on miniatures a lot of the time, but I thought, why not? The original folding version actually just had a square end that was like that, so you could sort of pop it off and go, ooh, zone of control. But as Moot has pointed out, you then sort of ended up with this double duty piece here being in three places, the middle, the 8-inch point and the 12-inch point. And because it was just on the end, that was the amount of contact point you had for the 50mm scenario objective, which, as you can see, is a silly idea, and he was right to call me out on that one. So you can also see here it says board edge if you're doing 50mm, so as long as you've got it the way up that you can read, that's the way up you're going to be thinking about using it. So for 30mm, the other way up. So this would be the board edge. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Sudden panic that it's wrong. Okay, so that's the product. Now, for all of you who've bought one already, and today is the 2nd of December 2022, so anyone who's already bought one, I've sent them out almost like this. I've assembled them, but they will have gone out with the laser masking on the top layer still applied, so you have to pick that off. But me assembling every single one just isn't really practical, especially when I consider the price point and so on. So in order to keep the price point down, I'm going to let you guys assemble it, you lucky people. But there are some sort of best practices to assembling it, which I'm going to show now. So if you order one by post and it arrives, it won't come in a bag like this probably, but this is probably how it's going to be displayed on the shelf, dangling around. So the magnets will be separate, they won't be slotted in. So let's open it up and I'll show you roughly how it will turn up. I would show you exactly, but I had a bunch of orders to fulfill, and this is sort of what I've got left. So magnets won't be glued in. So let's pop this one out. No, wait, let's pop this one out. Wait, have I glued? No. I did prepare for this, I did plan and everything, but almost got it out. I'm not going to edit this, so thank you for your patience. Okay, I didn't cut myself live on camera, so that's good. Right, magnet out. Okay, so this magnet I have already glued in. Again, I think you'll generally be able to apply the principles. So it'll arrive like this, and what you want to do is just, pull your masking off. There we go, look at that. Oh, a little feature actually that I didn't design. It was like emergent. So the neoprene mats that GCT do, which are produced by Deep Cut Studio, neoprene mats are wonderful things. I love them. But there is a slight downside to them in that they aren't always perfectly accurate. So I was laying these out for like a photo shoot on my neoprene mat and discovered that it's not quite 24 inches across, which is fine. You just take that into account, but it does mean that if you're measuring from one board edge, it doesn't these don't work quite so well. But what I found out is actually where I put this arrow to denote that it would be an inch across when folded shut. Actually, if I line that arrow up with the neoprene mat, that was measuring to the middle of the board. So that was like a happy, happenstance or whatever you call it. So lucky accident, happy accident. Obviously, that might not be the case with all the neoprene mats, but it was with mine, so that was fun. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is remove the masking from the bottom two pieces, because once it's assembled you obviously can't remove it. This video is going to be a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, especially trying to do this whilst looking through the camera. It's a little bit of a challenge, and then feeling compelled to talk as if silence would be boring. I mean, I could do that thing that YouTubers do and edit a bunch of music over this and speed it up, but that's wildly overestimating how much time I'm going to devote to this. So, I've stuck it to my bees. Right, there we go. Okay, so that's the first layer done. Now you can see, like, oh, look at this helpful instruction I put on here. Oh, I thought for. So this is my little sprue of tabs, and what you're going to want to do is pop 3 of them off. I'm just going to do one piece at a time. So when you look at these slots here, I'm actually going to zoom in a bit. How do you zoom in? No, that's focus. What are we doing here? Okay. Oh god, that's horrible. Who would do that? Who would use digital zoom, eh? There we go. All right, I'm just going to leave it for now. So what you want to do, you can see that they just widen slightly at the edges. That is to just give you a little bit more space to pop the tab in like that. So I'm going to do that with all 3 of them. And obviously these now need to be pressed into this piece. And if you try and do them all at the same time, there is a little bit of a chance that you might do it unevenly and end up causing a crack. It might not be the end of the world, but you want to avoid it if you can, especially when you come to do the top piece, because if you look at the top piece, of course, there's smaller gaps between the edges and the slot. So what I'm going to do, and if you didn't think there were enough bees on this table, I'm going to bring in our coasters, and one at a time I'm basically just going to press down on here so that it doesn't put any pressure on these ones, and I'm just going to sort of roll it in. It's going to do some nice creaking boat sounds. There we go. Done. There we go. So those are in. So next up, just put those to one side. I'm going to then do a similar thing with the top piece. Just get those corners in. You'll see it like this. It's worth checking at this point that you haven't sort of caused the MDF to start splitting at the corner that you've put pressure on, because that could make it difficult. If you have, just switch over to the other side. If it is irreparable, you only need 6 of these and you get 8, so you should be good. So then what we're going to do is, evenly as we can, just ease it on a little bit at a time. It can be quite tough, but That's what keeps it together. Oh. There we go. Right. I want to give it a little bit of a wiggle, make sure that it's okay. You might see some slight inconsistency or gap in the gap there, or no gap at all, but it'll all work fine, so don't worry too much about that. Okay, there we go. And I'm now going to do the same on the other side, which obviously this is the bit I'd speed up if I were a content creator who knew what he was doing. Or, you know, cared enough to actually break out some editing software. Alright, back to the bees. Well, nailed that. Come back to that one. Yep, he's in. Right, so what happened there? Nothing much. Just didn't really line it up very nicely, and it didn't go in straight away. The tolerances are pretty tight, but like I say, that's what holds it together as a fairly solid piece of kit. Now here you can see a little bit of a problem where I've sort of bulged out the last layer of MDF. It's a bit difficult to see maybe on the video. Just press down and there you go, all good. So that one there, let's get the other piece. If you've got any little bits like that, I mean actually that's, yeah, just make sure that they're not fouling it when you put it together. Right, let's do the same thing again. So ease it into the corner. I wasn't looking at the camera then, so hopefully that was in shot. Seeing as it's the second one, doesn't really matter. Oh. There we go. There is a tiny bit of lateral play, so it may not be perfectly lined up centrally because, you know, I'd have to have some tolerance in there. You may be able, if it's particularly off, and I've not really come across it being very off, but you should actually be able to sort of realign it by pushing and pulling. But I think generally they've all gone together really well. Okay, so that is stage one of assembly essentially. Stage two is the magnets, and I've already glued this magnet in. Now I do recommend starting with the top one. Push it in from the top and then press it down on the table so it's nice and flush with the top. That means that you're going to have your millimeter sticking out because this is the 4mm magnet in a 3mm piece of MDF. Then you glue it in. So I run super glue around the top here into these slots, which allow the wood to expand a little bit, and then the glue goes in. And I tend to wipe it off. I'm looking around myself, realise I haven't grabbed any kitchen roll or anything, but yeah, I just wipe that off, and it keeps it a bit cleaner. And I also use super glue accelerator for this because I'm assembling them for the store and I kind of want it to be quick, but also it just makes sure that everything sort of crystallises nicely in there, nice and quick. So once you've done the top piece, we do the bottom piece. Now we start with the top piece for reasons that I can't be bothered to explain and would bore you. Just take my word for it that it's the best way to do it. Then we put the 2mm magnet on top of that. Put the two together like this. Line them up nicely. Put it down on the table and press. Now that one went in quite easily, and this is because of the tolerances of the magnet dimensions actually vary a little bit as well. So originally the intent was to design these to just go together with friction, and you know, a couple of prototypes that was absolutely the case, but I can't rely on the magnet being the right size. So what I tend to do is I get my little tube of Loctite. My pro tip is don't buy massive tubes of super glue unless you use a lot of super glue, because super glue ages in exposure to oxygen, and those big pots, I don't think I've ever gotten to the bottom of a large pot of super glue without it just going gummy or even just hard. And I keep my super glue in a baggie. That is because I use a fair amount of accelerator, and this protects it from the accelerator that is just sort of floating around in the atmosphere. Also, I keep them in the same place. So you can get accelerator pens, which look a bit like a highlighter, and they have the same chemical on them. They're pretty cool. This is better for this situation. You know, other super glue accelerators, activators are available, but this is the one I'm going to use. So I pop the lid off. And what I'm going to do is try and look through the camera while I do this. Oh my god, this is hard. Okay, I'm just going to run some super glue around there. Make sure that those little slots are filled. Super glue to one side. Grab some of this masking tape and just wipe off the excess. And then I'm going to quickly put the lid back on that so I don't accelerate the actual lid, and then spray, make sure it's in shot. Well, there we go, and that'll do it. One other advantage of it curing quickly is that, you know, these little grooves, and you're dealing with a fluid, so they're going to wick down into that gap pretty quickly. That's interesting. I haven't actually had frosting with this stuff yet, but you know, everything's a bit different when you're doing it on camera. So there you go, that's assembled, and that's going to be pretty tough. See, there we go, I've had some super glue wick through and it's actually pulled a little bit of the white off, but like I say, you're not going to see that, and you won't be doing it on camera, so you'll probably do a better job than I am right now. Bloody hell, it's a 22-minute video. Okay, right, let's try and wrap this up. So final step, and it is fiddly because you've got to weed out all the extra bits after you've got the big piece off. But I like to leave this stuff on. One, I mean, it's obviously time consuming for me to take it off, and I'd have to charge you for my time. I don't think either of us would want that. But also, it keeps it protected. Means that you could selectively weed bits off and use the masking to actually paint it if you wanted to. You know, you've got the risen sun symbol here, which you could come in and you could just remove, let's say, this section of it. There we go. And then, you know, you could paint that red if you like, and then remove the rest of the masking. I probably wouldn't spray it. Overspray on the underside would be a problem, although you could just paint it before you assemble the whole thing. My logo, which is designed specifically to be really irritating to weed. There we go. Pop that out, that bit, all of this rubbish. The more I look at the timer, and this is coming up for 25 minutes, I reckon by the time we finish, I might have to edit it. Would have the positive side effect of you not having to listen to me trying to think of things to say for 25 minutes, but let's see. Maybe I'll pop it up as it is and then edit it. Nearly there. Don't always have to use your nail, and when it gets close to bits like this, you might not want to use your nail because you could end up popping a bit of the MDF off. But there we go, there we have the assembled scenario widget. Now you can see actually there's a bit of a gap here, and that's probably just because of that lateral play that I talked about. I don't think I'm going to be able to fix it on camera because it's a pain, but there you go.